So, Catherine, this is your team. Joel, Pat, and George, right?
Yes.
Just making note of that. Oh, Ebenezer, I have a question. Now that Marielle is back, does that mean we add someone else to the group, which means our quorum number has to be higher?
So let me see how many people you have. Hold on.
I mean, if it helps, there's some members that have not been coming to the meetings for a very long time. It's kind of hard meeting quorum.
So you have 11 members now, including the public member, Marshall Vanderpool. So half plus one, it will be 6 for you to have a quorum.
That's including me.
Yes, including Marielle. But I heard that she will not be in tonight.
Right. Oh, okay, wait. So I have 12 on my list, including myself.
Who is the other person?
That's why maybe I didn't take someone out when there was like the new. So I have myself, Marielle, Wendy Peña, Jay Baez, Richard Alman, Mariam.
Wendy Peña is not in this list. Probably that's the case.
Okay, perfect, better.
Let me read to you what I have here. You, Emily Martin, Michelle Ali, Marielle Ali, Jay Baez, Richard Allman, Marian James, Michelle Lee, Kimberly McCoy, Aisha Ogilvy, Bruce Robertson, Genesis Salas, and Marshall Vanderpool as a public member.
Okay. Thank you.
Catherine, what about Michael Wolf? Is part of your group, and Megan Smith?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Oh no, Michael Wolf is part of the public.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So your team is complete now. We don't need to promote anyone. Okay.
No.
Okay, good.
Hey Bruce, hey Jay, welcome. To Bruce. Yeah, so I sent a message to all the members. I hope that they all join us. Oh. Nice weather we've been having, right?
Amazing.
Interesting. And in November.
Who are we waiting on?
Right now,
Yeah.
oh, we haven't met quorum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
We
who
still
else?
need, including myself, is 6, right, Ebenezer?
Yes, you have 11. You need to have a half plus one.
Okay.
So who are we missing?
3 more people or 2 more people. Because we're 4.
Is Marielle Ali back on the committee?
She is,
Yes,
but
she
she's not
is.
joining us tonight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And does Marshall counts? He's a public member.
Yes,
Yes,
he's
he
there.
is. So we're
Cool.
just waiting for a
Hey,
couple
Marshall.
more members.
Well, who else do we need to call?
I sent out messages.
Hey,
Maybe I
Bruce.
should call.
Hey, Marshall.
I'm sort of in the background. I got some stuff I got to catch up on, but I'm here.
Ketchup, mustard, it's all the same thing.
Yeah, well,
I hear you, buddy.
it's a greasy burger I'm dealing with.
Oh, no. Okay. Sorry to hear that.
Okay, Aisha's joined us. Welcome, Aisha. Just one more person, and then we could get started, y'all.
Is Michelle, do you know if Michelle's coming?
Not sure. I did send her out a message, but haven't gotten a response. Kimberly is the only person I forgot to message.
There she is. Hey, Michelle.
Hey guys, how are you?
Michelle, welcome.
We're
Hi.
short on quorum, so it's good you popped up.
Oh,
Yes.
awesome.
Perfect. Okay. Maybe adjust my eyeballs. I've been on the screen all day, y'all, so it'll be a little hard to read things and I'll be reflecting stuff on the screen, so you could get a little help, but yes, let's get started. All right. So I will call this meeting to order now that we have quorum. We have exactly 6 members. Woohoo! So it's 7:06 p.m. And I hope everyone received in the email the updated agenda. If not, I could reflect it on the screen real quickly. But before we do that, let's just do some short introductions. So I hope everyone's available to introduce themselves. I'll start out. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Marte. I'm the interim chair or chair of the Housing and Human Services Committee. I've been a resident of Washington Heights almost all my life, 30-ish years. And I'm happy to be here to help out the community. Although housing isn't my forte, I'm definitely learning a lot. So yes. And let me just call on people. Marshall, do you have a moment to do a short introduction?
Sure. I'm Marshall Vanderpool. I'm currently the first vice president of Dyckman Resident Association, Dyckman Houses, New York City Housing Authority, duly elected representatives of the residents for NYCHA. And I've been on the committee. I'm a public member. I've been on the committee, wow, a little while now. And I'll land my plane here, get others to speak.
Yes, the master of land and plains. Bruce.
Okay, Bruce Robertson, in Lower Washington Heights at 3 blocks north of the cemetery, Trinity. 22 years, real estate broker, do a lot uptown and pleased to be on the committee for a couple of years now. It's been interesting.
Thank you, Bruce. Michelle?
Hi, guys. My name is Michelle. I'm a member of the Housing and Human Services Committee. I've been on the board for a little bit over a year. I myself have lived in Washington Heights for about 4 years, but I actually grew up in New York City, near the Flushing area. So yeah, that's me.
Didn't know that. I feel like I learned something new about each member every meeting in the intros. Jay, are you available to do an intro?
Yes, sorry.
No worries.
Jay Bias, a new board member, born and raised in Washington Heights all my life. I'm glad to be here. I'm sorry, I'm a little sick, so.
Same here. Yes. Okay, welcome, Jay. And Aisha, do you have a moment to do a small intro?
Yes.
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Aisha Ogilvy. I've been on the community board for about 9 years now. I've been in the community for 43 years, raised a child here, went to school here most of my life. And I am on this committee as well as land use now, but I've been on other committees throughout my 9-year experience. Good evening, everybody.
Awesome. All right. So I'll reflect on the screen very quickly, just the agenda for tonight. Yes, and I see we have a Q&A. I'll get to that in a second. Okay. So we're going to be talking about committee priorities first. That's the first one on the agenda. I don't know if you all have from the Inwood project like time of priorities that you need to get out by a certain time. Maybe we could readjust, like putting them first, or Ebenezer. I'm not quite sure why it was put in this order, but maybe we could do them first and then do the others, or I'm not sure. But yes, we're going to talk about committee priorities, then waste management in residential buildings in Community Board 12. And today we have guests that are going to talk about extended hours work requests for the Inwood project at 207. And I didn't add it here, but I'm pretty sure there's something that will go under old business, at least new business, and then adjournment. Okay. Yes, Aisha?
Yeah, so I unfortunately first want to object to the agenda, to the update of the agenda. I had community members contact me to ask why at the late juncture of just a few hours ago was the Inwood extended hours being added to the community board. It is improper public notice. It does not give the opportunity for those members, for any member, first of all, in the community to have sufficient notice to know that they might want to appear here, but also specifically those people that may be affected by that request have not been, and we've already gone through this. We're going through this right now with the variance that there were 2 variances where I made a huge deal of lack of public notice in those instances. So I don't even know how we get here again.
Yes. So maybe Ebenezer could speak more to that, but it's something that was added to the agenda, and because we already had 37 Hillside Avenue, also something that's on our lists constantly until we solve the request or issue. That's the only reason I had put it for the next meeting, just because this was something newer. But to be honest, it's still going to be something that's discussed, because
that's not really how that works. That's something that the committee should agree on.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you were saying you didn't understand why the order of the agenda was the way it was. So it makes me curious if someone else is creating the agenda. But and I again, I hate to constantly have to be a stickler for these things, but the process is important. We are the community board. How are we're violating our own practices by not giving appropriate public notice to our community, to the people who would be affected by that issue. It's not proper.
Yeah, I hear you. Let's see if Ebenezer has something to say.
Yes, these items were placed on the agenda mistakenly for the health committee, and it was put on the back of the calendar. So that we sent there last week. So proper notice has been done because it went out, scheduled for another committee that happened today at this time. The only thing that came was the venue of the committee, and the operator for the Zoom and the other committee, the health committee, is aware that somebody attend the health committee looking for one of these items, you're going to be transferred to this committee as well. But it's your call, Madam Chair, how you want to continue with this. But notice was done, have to be accommodated at the last minute. We apologize for the mistake, but this is what we have right now.
So in all due respect, it's unfortunate that a mistake was made, but it is not proper notice. Because for instance, I'm a member of this committee scheduled to appear here to hear these matters, and I didn't know it was going to be on the agenda. So how can we assume that for members of the community that it would be proper notice?
Like I said before, Aisha, it was put on the back of the calendar for
I
tonight.
understand, but we can't assume that because it was on the calendar for another committee that it would be proper notice for this committee.
And as soon
It is
as the reverse of the decision was made this afternoon, a new agenda was created and immediately was sent out to everyone as well.
Well, I'm going to make an upfront statement that I'm in objection to it being on the agenda. I don't think that it's proper. And I also do not think that we should be making any decisions about that matter tonight for that reason.
Yeah, so everyone knows that I'm like a newer member, so that's the only reason why I'm letting everyone just speak before me. But being that I'm not too familiar with the rules and I became a chair soon after I became a member here, I'm not too sure about what should be done about cases like this. I do know that 37 Hillside is still on our table and has been on the table and was going to be spoken about anyway during even old business, just because I still haven't found out any data about what we tabled. But if it is objected, I'm not quite sure, Ebenezer, what the rules are. If we have to take certain steps.
It's the call of the committee. You can consider it. You can consider it, Aisha's as a motion. You can put it to vote. You can also make a decision to listen to the presentation and find out what it is, and do not make any decision. Is many things that you guys can do, but I cannot do it for you.
Okay. So it does sound like a motion to me. So Aisha made a motion to object to the new change that has been made just recently to add the extended hours work request for Inwood project at 207. Does anyone else second the motion? All right. So I don't see anyone else seconding the motion. Or wait, hold on,
Bruce.
sorry. Bruce, yeah,
Bruce
Bruce, sorry, I
seconded.
saw your hand. I was like waiting for a voice. I can't really
Yeah,
look
me.
at the screen.
I'll second it,
Okay.
which means we put it off till next month, correct?
That, I guess, Ebenezer, is that how it works?
Aisha, is that what you want? You want to table till next month?
I think that would be appropriate.
I second her motion.
So the motion is to object the addition of the review of the extended hours work request for Inwood project at 207 to be moved to next month, just so that people have enough time to like actually hear about this and attend the meetings. Is that what it is?
Yes.
And that's what's been seconded. So sorry to the team who had showed up today. I'm pretty sure it would have been like a very productive meeting. But
We need to vote on it?
And
uh,
I wanted,
oh, I thought if it was, I'm so sorry. If it's seconded, then we vote. Sorry. Is that how
so
it goes?
hearing what you're saying, one of the things that one of the community members that reached out to me said was, if a team of people are appearing to speak about this tonight, then they had more public notice than the community at the community board's meeting. So that obviously is the case, which is not appropriate. So
Can I say something?
Yeah, Bruce.
So if this group wants to do their presentation, it will be recorded. And then we can send it out to people who weren't able to make this meeting to give the side of the presenters in preparation for a December meeting where the community can show up and voice their opinions, you know, vis-a-vis the presentation, so we don't waste the time here for the group that showed up. Aisha, do you accept that?
So I'm willing to accept that, but I want to be clear that for me, and I would like to entertain looking at our bylaws and even what the community members feel, the spirit of the necessity to give public notice about it appearing on the calendar is not just about whether they present, right? But it's also sets precedent. Because in the future, if another group wants to just be added at the last minute or whatever, however it happens, we have had situations where things were slid into the calendar and we had the Sherman Plaza and the entire community coming against us because we slid it in and they didn't know about it. It's not appropriate. So it's about precedent. It's also about participation. So yes, we can hear about it, but are we going to talk about it tonight? Which is basically, it's our process in motion. It's a motion that is happening without the community's knowledge and appropriate notice.
Okay,
In
understood.
the past, we've not had benefit of Zoom, which is a recorded dialogue of what the presentation is.
In a
So
community that still has a digital divide.
whatever,
and
I'm just saying,
I
they're here.
understand.
They're here, let them talk, and then we can have them come back next month and do the same thing all over again if that's what they want. But I can go either way.
So Bruce, are you reversing your motion, your seconding?
No, I'm just discussing the motion.
Okay.
The folks are here, they showed up. Do we record them as a presentation and then send it out to people so they
I see
get
what
an
you're saying.
advance notice of what was being said, and they can, the community can prepare its comments in reaction to the presentation that was made. You know,
Right.
it's sort of giving them a heads up on what was going to be said, and they come back next month in December with
Mhm.
their comments in reaction to that.
Yeah, I would agree to that. I don't know if everyone else would agree to this. So even though it was put into the agenda last minute, just having them at least present and then letting people know that they're here and actually have a discussion about it next meeting.
And we would not vote on it or do anything in reaction to it now. It's just a passive recording of their position on the issue.
Okay, Michelle?
Yeah, I think that would be a good way forward. I think if we did, give ourselves time till December, we could also reach out to like the neighbors, as we've done for 37 Hillside, and kind of get people, have time to get people's feedback on this extended hours proposal. So yeah, I would feel uncomfortable making a decision
Mhm.
for voting on anything today. But I feel like, which I think makes sense given Aisha's comments, but I would be open to hearing the presentation.
Okay, that sounds good for Michelle. Marshall, Jay, Aisha, do
agree.
you? Okay, Jay says yes. Marshall and Aisha?
Yes, I think it's reasonable for the presentation. Um, I guess it'll help me get up to speed on some of this too, as well as formulate any questions in the future with no decision. I think it's reasonable.
Okay, and Aisha?
I'm willing to agree on those terms
Okay.
and to agree with my committee. It's not
Yeah.
my intention just to be against the current, but to defend the community.
No, yeah, but you made great points as well. So yes, thank you for bringing that up, Aisha. And yes, to the group, maybe if it's okay for everyone as well, maybe they could present first and then we go on with the rest of the agenda. Can I make that amendment? Or if everyone does a thumbs up, and I'll take that as a yes. Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes. And Aisha, yes. Okay. Okay, so we'll move this up in the agenda and I will allow Inwood Project to speak first and be the first item on the agenda. And we'll hear you out and we'll have you in the recording. Everyone will watch it, be more well-informed, and then in the next meeting, we would have to discuss and make decisions, okay? So the floor is yours.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Emily and Ebenezer and the rest of the committee for having us. I'm unfortunate about the misunderstanding. We thought we were presenting, as Ebenezer said, to a different committee, and there was a switch at the last moment. But of course, we're happy to share information and then discuss at a later date. So my name is Catherine Kelman. I am with LMXD, an affiliate of L&M Development Partners. I have a number of colleagues here, UL Zaid and Pat Lynch, as well as George Zapillas from Taconic Partners. The project we're talking about is being developed by a joint venture of 3 companies, LMXD, Taconic Partners, and M Squared. Emily, if you would like, I can, if you would like to give me the ability to share my screen, I can just bring up the site on the screen if that's helpful to show you.
Sure, I'll give you the co-host power. There you go.
Okay, great, thank you. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the address for the project is 405-407 West 206th Street. I mentioned the joint venture that's developing the project. You can see an aerial on the screen that shows the location of the site. It's located on 2 tax lots that are adjacent on the site of the former supermarket between 9th Avenue and 10th Avenue and West 206 and West 207th Street. This project, I'll can give you a quick overview of what what is being developed here. But the sort of the punchline for why we're here is that we will be asking the Department of Buildings for an after-hour variance for Saturday work for the site to hopefully expedite the duration of the work. So that we wanted to bring this committee up to speed, because obviously the DUB will consult with the community board on the project. So just as you're looking at the site, I'll just point out, I'm sure everybody's very familiar with the location, but point out the uses surrounding the site. So to the north across West 207th Street is the MTA train yard. To the east across 9th Avenue is the beverage distribution building. To the south across West 206th Street is a mix of different uses. There are commercial uses on the corners, and there's a residential building, a co-op in the middle of the block. And then to the west are 4 buildings. We're obviously working with those buildings closely as they directly abut the construction site. There are 4 buildings there, 3 of them are commercial. The southern building is residential. So predominantly commercial uses around the site. Just to give you an overview of the project, it's as I said, it's 2 tax lots, so it's 2 buildings that are adjoining So between the two, it's nearly 700 apartments, 698. They are half affordable. So 40% of the apartments are low income at 40, 60, and 80% of area median income. Another 10 are at 120% of area median income, and the remaining 50 market rate. There will be an approximately 20,000 square foot theater in the building on West 26th Street, the People's Theater Project. There will be approximately 17,000 square feet of neighborhood retail on the West 27th frontage, so along West 27th, a supermarket along 9th Avenue, and accessory parking in the basement primarily of the building with access from West 26th. So just a rendering of the site here, you're looking across West 26th Street to the north. So this is the West 26th Street frontage. The theater will be located on the western side, then the garage entrance, the residential lobby, and then the supermarket on the right along 9th Avenue. So here, 9th Avenue is on the right. And then this is a view from West 207th Street looking south, so the other side of the building. So again, on the left here is 9th Avenue. You see the supermarket, which wraps around onto West 207th. In the middle of the block is the second entrance to the residential lobby, and then the neighborhood retail to the west of that along West 207th. In terms of where the project stands today, it's in the excavation stage today. It will be in the excavation stage through approximately January of 2023. We'll begin concrete operations later this year and continue through the end of 2023 when the building is expected to top out. And when I say building, it really applies to to both buildings, the whole complex together. As I mentioned, we'll be applying to the Department of Buildings for the ability to work Saturdays, 8 to 6. And that's why we wanted to share this matter with the committee. We're not planning to include any holidays in that. Doing this would allow us to shorten the duration of the work, both the excavation and concrete operations, by about a month for each stage. So of course we know construction, is an inconvenience for the surrounding neighborhood, but hope that the faster, it is complete, the better it will be, the less inconvenient. So as I mentioned, we're already working closely with the 4 buildings that are directly abutting the site that are on 10th Avenue. But wanted to also coordinate with this committee and answer any questions that you might have. So that's really the extent of the presentation. My colleague Pat Leach, who's here today, is in charge of the construction for the general contractor on the site, Chatsworth Builders, so we can answer any questions you have about the project or the construction operations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. So I'm assuming everyone else on your team was here for support, like for questions, right?
Yes, just to be able to answer any questions you might have. Exactly.
Okay, yeah. So unfortunately, we can't really discuss it, but I do appreciate you all presenting it. And now that we have this recorded, then people will be able to see it. And next month's meeting, we could discuss it.
Well, the one thing I would like to say there, and I mean, thank you very much for having us, as Catherine said. So my name is Pat Leach, and I'm the construction lead end of our company. And I just kind of want to make the statement of, we're not asking for anything more than what the building department allows. We're trying to be upfront and present, rather than we could have gone to the building department and just tried to get a permit and tried to work. But we want to present, we want to be upfront, and we want to discuss what we're looking for. And currently the building department allows construction sites to work 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday. They typically give a permit to work Saturdays 10 to 4. So our ask is to work a longer day on Saturday. And they also typically, if you're working on a concrete pour or concrete operations during the week, they allow you to continue to work. Such as, we're going to have some large concrete pours. They're going to be upwards of over 400 to 500 yards per day. So that you're looking at 40 to 50 concrete trucks in and out of the site. So chances are we won't be done by 6 o'clock. It'll probably be 7:30, 8 o'clock. But I just wanted to make those notes, so we're not looking to ask for anything beyond what is pretty much acceptable within the industry standard. So, and I mean, thank you very much for your time, and that we're not looking to work Sundays, we're not looking to work nights, we're not looking to work something beyond what a neighborhood could kind of expect. So,
Okay.
thank you again. Greatly appreciate your time and fitting us in.
And what are the hours that you will have for Saturday? I know that that's a question.
So right now, typically the building department would give us 10 to 4 without asking the question. And then we are presenting and then asking for additional hours. Because typically they'll tell us to go to the community board and get a letter from the community board that's acceptable to work additional hours. So ideally we'd work 7 to 5 or 8 to 4, somewhere along those lines. So I mean that we understand a Saturday, maybe you wouldn't want to start at 7 o'clock, maybe we'd start at 8, but the ask could be 8 to 5 on Saturdays.
8 to 5 on Saturdays. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Any other comments from your team? Okay. So we do have 3 hands up, but just to remind our members, remember we can't discuss the matter. So I'm not sure if you're going to ask questions, because then it's like, you know, room for discussion. Even I asked a question. It's hard not to. So I understand. The first hand I saw up was Jay, then Marshall, and then Aisha.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that the PowerPoint presentation be sent to us.
Yes, of course.
Thank
Awesome. Thank you. And then Marshall?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm stepping over a line here, but
It's hard not to.
I mean, there maybe I'll phrase it as a comment. There is a lot of construction going on over there, and I'm kind of curious as far as some of the infrastructure, as far as sewage, how that is addressed in your plan. And maybe that's something you can look at and be responding to, and maybe you only have the question. I mean, maybe you're only half of the person to address the question as far as the city. And I guess one other observation, we are in a floodplain. So how does that factor into your development plans? And I'll land my plane right here.
Okay, thanks for the comments, Marshall. Maybe it's notes for them to take and comment on next meeting. Okay, and then Aisha?
So since we are not discussing the matter, I wanted to just raise it above what we're looking at right now to the global practice of looking at variances, new developments. If we look to licensing, how they have carved out a process for anyone that comes before them for specifically the licensing, maybe that's something that we should be looking to do in housing, because already I'm thinking, you know, going into the next meeting, we want to guard against the experience we've had with the 37 Hillside matter, where we have gone through multiple meetings simply trying to pull the information to have a, you know, the appropriate understanding, and to make sure that the community is included, and to make sure that there's not impact that is, you know, detrimental, all those things. But, you know, if those things were presented at every developer up front, then they would know what to come prepared with, what kinds of questions we're going to be expecting to be answered, and, you know, whatever that process is that we develop. So thank you.
Thanks, Aisha. Yeah, so there was another item on our agenda that is another development, which is why we brought up that, or why Aisha mentioned this. just because the community is involved. And then if like there's community members that say that this is too much for them, then we also have to take that into account when we make our decision. So that's why probably in the next meeting, if members from the public do come up, that's probably something to look into, or something that you all will be responding to in the next meeting. So thank you, members, for making your comments. It's hard not to ask questions, but in the next meeting, we could definitely speak more about it and discuss it. So thank you to the Inwood Project for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Yes. Good
Bye-bye.
night. Good night, y'all.
Good night. Thank you.
Hey, Richard, how are you? Put you here.
Apologies on the time.
No worries.
Work does that sometimes.
It does. It certainly does. Welcome. So just to catch you up, Richard, I think you've received our updated agenda. So our number 4 was added last minute, and Aisha pointed out that it was like too last minute, and then the public can't really like get in on the conversation. So we actually made a change to just have them present. Since this is recorded, people could look at it, and then in the next meeting we could discuss it. And then 37 Hillside, that was my my mistake. I actually like just made the decision because when I kind of just got startled when I heard that we had like another item that had to do with another development on the table. And then we also, I didn't do the research to find out like what could be done about 37 Hillside, or not enough, or I asked around, but I didn't get enough answers. So that's why it's sort of still tabled. If we put it as an item, we would have just had the same conversation, but it still could be like something for old business. So that's why it's not here, but I'm pretty sure we could still discuss it in old business. So that's just a catch up, Richard.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
But other items, okay, does anyone have any comments about that? I know that like, it was a decision as chair. Not sure if it was a bad decision. If anyone has like a suggestion,
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's like a suggestion or something else I could have done. That's just all I could think of at the moment. Okay. So, Aisha, do you have your hand up for?
No, I guess my arm was getting pretty tired up there.
Oh no, sorry. Yes, okay, so just to continue with the agenda items, as number 2, we have committee priorities, which is something that I initially, I spoke with Marielle about it when I first joined as a co-chair, and it was kind of like upon me joining, I just wanted to hear on what everyone wanted to focus on in the Housing and Human Services Committee, aside from the items that we've been like circulating and recirculating every month. So it seems like we've been talking a lot about 37 Hillside, or I know there are other, there are other items that could be discussed in like old business for Fort Washington Armory. But there's also other members in the general board that are saying, what about all these other issues that are happening for Housing and Human Services Committee? And this has also been brought up in the executive committee when I updated them on what we had been discussing. They're like, okay, but we really need housing, and some of them got really emotional, but there's just other topics that potentially we could speak about, and we continuously keep having conversations, like bigger conversations on one thing that just keeps coming back, like, boomerang. So even human services topics that we could, bring in into our conversations a little bit more, or other things that people have been wanting to talk about. That's what I wanted to bring up for this agenda item, committee priorities. So Aisha, do you have a comment? Oh, you're on mute if you are talking.
I was talking.
Yeah.
Okay, so was that from the executive committee that you were saying we're asking about the other topics being discussed?
Yes. Yeah, and it's also the chair. I mean, I understand that we've been talking about certain items and I've only been in the committee since June officially, but if there's like any other topics that you all find pressing that we should also be pursuing into like making a resolution or putting our efforts into, aside from what's just placed into our agenda, like.
So, and Emily, you and I have talked outside of the meeting, right? And I welcome you here with all the warmth in my heart. I feel like you are doing a great job already and can do a phenomenal job. And at the same time, in the community, there's a statement that said like, miss me with that, which basically means not what you're saying, which means like, really? Because this board, many of the executive members that have already been executive members for some time, have participated in really what is a drag on the Housing and Human Services Committee. And that can be demonstrated just by looking at all of the agendas that have come out over time. Some of what I was pushing for as chair of Housing and Human Services was being very laser focused on all the things that impact our community that we should be reviewing on a regular basis, including media, the use of technology, educating community members on those matters, and even advocacy. And advocating also for using technology so that the information can be funneled to us on a more regular basis, so that it's not contingent on whether one of us knows about something or the chair putting all the impetus on the chair, but there are ways in which technology could be used in order to keep on our radar the things that are our purview. And those things were not important to many of those executive members as these years have passed. And there are reasons for that, and there are agendas behind that. But I am 100% in the spirit of that, of what you're saying, which is that we should be focusing on the matters in housing, not just in housing, but definitely in human services, which we have been extremely neglectful. And unfortunately, we have been neglectful during the time that I've been on this board. That is the most important time, which is the pandemic, right? I'm so certain that during this pandemic, people have been exposed to higher risks of housing fragility, as well as the many issues that have come up in human services where providing those services to people are concerned. Like, for instance, renewals of already existing benefits and programs, and the lack of supports in those offices, and the lack of access because people were not in those offices in some instances, some people working from home. Many people have fallen through the cracks during that time. And during that time, this board and this executive committee has been completely irresponsible with putting people in place that had the understanding of the importance of that and the background in housing and human services in order to step up to that charge. So I just want to put that on record.
Okay, thank
Thank
you
you.
for your comment. Okay, anyone else? I do see what Aisha meant. I mean, I do feel that, and I've said it time and time again, even when I was asked to be co-chair, that I'm not an expert in housing at all. And I myself need resources. I myself am going through my own like issues of, you know, not being knowledgeable enough and then being exploited for it, even with just like my lease and everything. So I found it to be like, maybe it'll be an opportunity for me to learn, but then at the same time, I do feel that I would feel more comfortable if I knew more about the matter as well. So, because then I could like head on a lot better and say, hey, these are the issues that are going on, and I have these networks and all of that. So that's the only reason that I feel a little bit like not capable of doing this. But at the same time, I do, if nobody wants to be or can be the chair at the moment, I'm happy to do it right now. And which is why I say I'm interim chair, because if somebody that is knowledgeable in this, that they could take on the position and I would happily be the co-chair. So so yes, I do agree with a lot of what you have just said, Aisha. Anyone else have any comments on this? If there's any other issues that you would like to explore or have heard about around the city, have read about, aside from what we're also going to talk about later on. But oh, Jay, sorry, I'm not looking at the screen.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna hinge on the fact that you said that you went to an executive committee meeting and people were saying, what about all these other things? I guess for me, I'm trying to understand what are those things that they're mentioning, because as far as we know, if we're not told unless we see it, we won't really know much. And as a reference to you not knowing about your lease and stuff, there's plenty of advocacy organizations that we can probably schedule to present to the board or the committee to teach both you and members how to do, like how to read your lease, what are the rules, if you're in a rent stabilized apartment or not, which is what gives you most of your rights. If you're market rate, you barely have any. So I guess I want to know what priorities were the executive committee mentioning that I'm not understanding.
Right. So what had happened was I basically just updated them on our last meeting with 37 Hillside, the budget ranking, and I believe like anything old business, which came up, the topics were HPD, and the buildings that Aisha mentioned, and Fort Washington Armory. So I gave them the update, and then it was just like it was a lot of, I just felt attacked, that's all. But I didn't react like I was attacked. It was just that a lot of people were like, we're in such high need of like affordable housing, that like there's a crisis. Even in human services, we're lacking in it like severely here in Manhattan. And we're here still like having this meeting over and over again about whether or not we should approve these extended hours for 37 Hillside and like other developments. Like we just need this right now. I just don't understand why we haven't made a decision. And I mean, I was confused because I wasn't here when, or I did join on late. Like I joined on like in the end of the year last year. So January meeting, I was lost. Like when I joined in, I was like, I have no idea what everyone is talking about. And I was new and I was like nervous. So I didn't recall this conversation. But if the board voted against it, why are you telling me, you know, like, why haven't we like accepted or approved this if we're in dire need of it? You know, that's what my understanding was. And then the comment about like severely lacking in human services, but they didn't specify what, because they just keep going on and on and on. They were just like, you know, calling on more people, and everyone was just like, oh, this needs to pass immediately. And I just don't understand. These seniors need housing. And I tried, you know, giving a voice to the tenants, because this is the main reason that it hasn't passed. Like if Michael Wolf hadn't been in these meetings, or Keith, or, you know, just the side of the tenants, then we probably would have made the decision already. But, you know, it's also a very important component as to like why we keep, you know, tabling things or we're uncertain. So that's also one of the reasons that I wanted to bring this up, but a long time ago, like I already wanted to just put on the table all of the topics that we should be, like all the endeavors that we could just be tackling here as a Housing and Human Services Committee, being that housing, especially in an urban setting like ours, is so important. So that's to answer that question. Aisha?
So, I'm sorry that you had that experience in the executive committee. And you are 100% right to say, wait a minute, but didn't the board vote? In no way, shape, or form can this sit on your shoulders when the voice of the board is the force that has it where it is. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what, and I've experienced that personally as a chair. I've experienced that as a member, where people on our board will attempt to point the finger at you and put blame when actually the force of the board is actually what is moving something. Do not be swayed by that. You're absolutely right. That being said, and to speak to what Jay was saying, how are we to know what we should be talking about? We are to know. We should know. We are the Housing and Human Services Committee. The chair should know 100%. And if you've attended any other meetings on the board, if you've attended the Parks Committee meeting, you will see that Liz is aware of the dynamics of what's happening in parks, specifically throughout our district, but otherwise, whether it be in New York City or even in the world at times, right? To be able to speak to what that means for parks in our community. Same thing if you go to land use and you see how Wayne Benjamin runs his meeting, his awareness of the land use dynamics and how they factor into the current development trends, infrastructure, etc. It is upon us to know what is urgent and important for our community. But then also, yes, I agree with what you said, to invite the stakeholders in our community to be present and have a voice as well, and therefore invite those institutions, organizations, and groups to our meeting so that they can take part as well. Yes.
Yes. So from what I have noted, I mean, that's just all part of the conversation, but maybe we want to organize some kind of a list where we have our priorities, things that we do want to be talking about or discussing in these meetings. Obviously, I would also need to network and find out like maybe who could present, who could give us information. I have been looking into this, like I have a contact that works under the mayor, and I've been trying to find contact numbers for people, but I'm not too sure, like it just hasn't been working out, like bouncing emails and all this stuff. Because I got in a hold of a contact number, but then it like always went to voicemail, and then the email always bounced back. So it's just like, you know, I'm trying, but then at the same time, I'm very over capacity in my job. So, because I work for a nonprofit. So yeah.
Okay, I guess as a general question, can't the people we're paying as a board help you with these things, right? Like, I know the cabinet service meetings involves all the agencies. Ebenezer can get you a straight up contact with DOB. Like, I don't know why you have to go through these hoops if Ebenezer already has someone that he speaks to every month, who can probably hunt somebody specifically for you. I'm just asking. I'm not sure how that works. I don't know if we can ask the Ebenezer to do it, or we're supposed to do it on our own.
I think that's a very good suggestion. I think all of us are sort of different points in our depth and experience in the community. And if there's some starter stuff that you need, staff is a good place to start. And if I can support some of that, I'm glad to do that too.
Great. Thank you, Richard. Yeah, so I'll definitely reach out to the executive board for more information. Aisha, do you have another comment?
So to speak to the point of getting especially city officials and agencies to our meeting, yes, the district, our district manager can be helpful in that. But I would say that there's a limit to his capacity to do his own job and do some of that. Just the general invite is one thing, and he will definitely help you track down who the person for whatever you're looking for might be. Just FYI to the entire committee, the Green Book is also a great resource to be able to figure out where in our city people hold positions, where it gives you actually right to a person's desk. In certain agencies, you can call their direct line using the Green Book. So please do. And I've personally used it to advocate for people in the community by using the Green Book. However, there are matters that are, I would assume, to be in motion because there are resolutions that I consider to be open that have not been followed through on, that have the force of the board behind them, where we have ratified these things, where action has not been taken, agencies have not appeared, people are not attending our meetings, and that falls on the chair of our board, and that has not been happening. That is part of his responsibility. And I've mentioned that. I mentioned that in, I think it was the last general meeting. We've also had discussions about the need to have all these people involved in helping us support the efforts that we're doing on the committee level. And in the general meeting, other committees have also spoken about the same thing. There's something happening with our leadership where they're not doing that part of their job, amongst other things. So we as members should be speaking to that when and if possible.
Yeah. And let's see, because I did look into this. Like I was trying to look for even human services things to add, but I guess it's just another topic that I could bring up in the executive meetings to clarify on. But we already have, like here, I just have like the list of things that we have already been having or been spoken about when I first joined, which is like the resource directory. And in that, we could even provide all of these services and information about housing. That would be very helpful, but I haven't gotten any headway on that. And then you guys mentioned the media, use of technology, education, advocacy, help during emergencies like for pandemics, eviction, and contacts, agency contacts. So that's all I have noted. It's definitely a lot. Human services involves a lot of things. So that's why it was just so broad. I didn't quite know to put for that.
So if I might, am I unmuted?
Yeah, go ahead.
Having served as chair of this very committee for a few years, I would say a good template for being in the know of what's happening, what's coming down the top pipeline, what could impact us, is to begin with looking at what our legislators are doing, what the bodies of our legislators are doing, as well as our elected officials specifically in our district, what they're doing specific to housing and human services. Then following the institutions that specialize in those matters as well, like the Furman Center, like certain nonprofit organizations, like the nonprofit organizations in our own community, like NIMIC, like Met Council, which is not specifically in our community, but does serve our community, following some of their work as well, is a good way to check the temperature of where we are and what matters we might want to review, especially before they come to be passed as legislation, so that we can weigh in and say, how do we feel? How does our community feel about these things before they're actually voted on and pushed by our legislators? Is a good start. Also, just keeping track of the media. As chair, I regularly I still have many Facebook notifications that I get from those very institutions. Whenever they post something, I get an alert that says they've done a new post, and I take a look at it and I see if it has any relevance. I have the same for media outlets, and even RSS feeds that pull things that talk about housing in New York City or talk about human services in New York City, whether it be the various benefit programs, so that you and we can stay on the pulse. But as I was saying before, I don't think that it should only fall on the chair to do that, but that it should be something that can be central to the entire committee, so that it is regularly being pushed to us. There are even reports that the elected officials get to their offices that they have promised me in the past, but unfortunately we were not able to get them to follow through on forwarding those reports to us. Maybe that's something we can do now. But those are just some examples of ways in which we can be on the pulse of what's happening.
Thanks. Yeah, that was very helpful. I'll be on the lookout for those things. Sorry, I was slight cold, but as of now, the only reason I haven't even been able to catch up, I told myself I'd do it over the summer, and my job just picked up instead. But I think once I have everything in order in January, because apparently we're getting a new hire at my job, I hope so, then I'd be able to help out more. But right now, that's the only reason I haven't done research and things, but that was very helpful. I'll be on the lookout for those things. So any other comments on what our committee priorities should be?
I have one thing, and probably a couple of things that I've been up since 5 in the morning. I had executives that flew in from California in the work that I do, which actually reminds me of another thing that is a possibility. So to begin with, the lead level allowance has been changed in New York City, which is going to require, actually, as of December 2021, the lead allowance was reduced to half of what it usually was. I think it was like 1 microgram, and now it's 0.5 micrograms or something to that effect. And what that is gonna require is new inspections to be done, and buildings are going to have to show compliance with those levels for the protection of people in our city, but for us, for people in our district. And that's going to require manpower that we already have known in years that the city didn't have. We, on a regular basis in our budget rankings, have stated that we were asking for more funding so that we could have more inspectors, so that we could address just repairs in general. So where is this manpower going to come from for inspectors to come and figure out whether apartments are in compliance with lead? I know for a fact that my apartment is one of those apartments that is at risk for that kind of thing, because I've had remediations for lead in the past. I live in a pre-war building that's been here since 1920, as are many of the buildings in our district. So it is likely that in our district is a central place for this to be an issue. And I think that a resolution should be put forward. And I've actually talked to somebody that I know that works in that field, about a possible resolution to create awareness, to create some type of system where there are contractors that do lead abatement, that do lead testing and remediation. And so some type of platform where those contractors, hopefully those that are beginning in our district, those that also maybe are minority women owned businesses, so that we can speak to the fact that the city has set a precedent to prioritize getting more contractors that fit that criteria to be contractors with the city, because of long history of discrimination against those contractors and lack of access for those contractors. So for this, the purpose of the lead focus, to make sure that people are protected from lead, that, you know, something can be done to use existing contractors that the city doesn't have the manpower to execute on the goal to make sure that we're all protected. So that's one idea. Another that I already started when I was chair was speaking to the Department of Buildings about the compliance with existing fire code. Right now, it is allowed that landlords that have buildings that are before a certain period or certain sizes can opt out of certain codes. The concern that I see with that is the fire hazard, right? Some of the reason why they're allowed to opt out is because it's a financial impact that they would have to update their buildings to comply with the existing code. But that is picking profit over people when we've had so many fires. And I think recently there was just a fire. But we've had so many fires in our city, but definitely in our district and in the Bronx, where many people have been affected. We definitely have had buildings in recent years where people have been affected. And I think that we could do something to change the way that, you know, landlords are allowed to skirt what is known to be a safety requirement, right? A benefit that I can bring to the table is I now work for the biggest fire protection equipment company in the nation, whose vice president sits on the board that creates the fire code. So I started a preliminary conversation with him about what he thinks about what New York City needs in order to protect people from fire. And so I can, you know, pull from that knowledge base to inform us, as well as any other entities, about what is best practice for protecting people from fire and how that weighs against the current allowances within the code. And we also should be talking to our fire departments and you know, I know they're not commanders, is it the chief or the, what do you call the head of the local fire departments? But we should be talking to them about their input. You know, they're the ones fighting the fires, so they know better than we do what that's looking like. And then it's also an opportunity to partner with another committee, which is the Health and Environment Committee, because fire, I believe, falls under their jurisdiction as well somehow. So and I think there was another idea that I have, but I forgot. So if I remember, I'll chime back in.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. That was very helpful. I do recall hearing the conversation on fire departments a few times, just because there had been really huge fires that had happened. So that's a very good topic as well. So you mentioned for having new inspections, not maybe for lead and more, but I feel like inspections could help with a lot of things beyond lead, and the fire code. So, and then you also mentioned the HPD and like the distressed buildings and the program. Let's see, what's the name of the program?
Yes, the distress,
Alternative enforcement program, is that the one that you were referring to in the past?
yes,
Okay.
which we
So-
still need for Department of Buildings, HPD to appear to speak
Yeah.
to that, as well as the condition of the 2 buildings, but other buildings as well in our district, any other buildings that are listed, especially in those programs, should be. Now, I also have a list of items that I've updated over the years. Unfortunately, I can't access it right now, but with things that I felt were priorities. One I remember, and I'm trying to remember the name of it, but there is a program that many buildings in our district, I actually sent an email. I can forward the email when I track it down to the committee. But there's a program that certain buildings in our committee are, in our community are in, that allows for the landlord to file for some type of exception to do things that, for instance, are like splitting areas of the building. And I wrote an email asking for more information from, I believe it was Mark Levine when he was a council member, because he was involved in that. But I was removed as housing chair, honestly, because of the Fort Washington Armory matter, and not allowed to advocate further for that. And it was kind of taken out of my hands, and we never heard back, and no one ever pursued it. So I will definitely find that email and forward it out. Unfortunately, I'm drawing a blank about the exact name of that at the moment.
Okay. Thanks for mentioning that. Anyone else? Any topics or priorities that you feel should be on our radar as a Housing and Human Services Committee?
The Fort Washington Armory public hearing,
Yeah, that's it.
and the task force, and all the items that were listed in that resolution that were voted on by our board and ratified. Where is the advocacy for that on behalf of our
Can you
executive
talk a little
committee?
more about the task force?
Part of the resolution was to put together a member of a group of individuals, some representative from our board, specifically from the committees that would be related committees to what could be happening at the Fort Washington Armory, but also members of the community. And I think so I don't remember the fullness of it, but other members of the community and city agencies as well, to participate in being a part of, first of all, preventing what has happened over the years there from continuing and ever happening, but also an organization, a group that would kind of like oversee this 2-acre building that could be providing services on a greater scale than what it has, but also that the contract that the city has deemed necessary and appropriate for that building be honored, but also speak to the spirit of the community's needs, is the general, like, I might be embellishing a little bit because I definitely have been associated with this for 8 years and have my heart in it, but that's the gist of the reason why I asked and supported that in that reso.
Okay. Yeah, if you could just forward that to me, or I think I just have to look through all the emails that I had received because I still didn't, I got so many. So
I have to see if, honestly, if I have the final ratified reso. I think that's something that the board office should be giving you, because I'd also like to see what was the final ratified. I don't know that I have that. Because one of the last asks that we had when Marielle was chair was that it be updated to include the current administrations that have changed since we originally voted for it, but also to make sure that all the offices that whose purview this might be are included in that. And so that should have been done by the office. I don't remember seeing a new copy since then.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to look into this, into all the emails and organize. Okay, so thank you for mentioning that again. Any additional comments on our priorities as a committee? Okay. All right, so if anything, message me about it. All right, let's move on to the next item. It's waste management in residential buildings in Community Board 4. So this is also something, I mean, everything is new to me here. So I was just wondering, like, okay, if we're talking to other community boards, why would that be? But then in the email, and I'll just share in the screen as well in a second, we received a message from the chair of Manhattan Community Board 4, Jeffrey. And he basically sent us a letter to see, they convened a sanitation planning working group. And they had several meetings with various city agencies and experts on the topic. And they sent something called DSNY, an extensive list of recommendations to reform sanitation management in New York City. And I'll show you guys the letter. Given all the trash talk of late, I do wish I shared this with you earlier. That's what he said. And my vision is failing me, but I'm going to share on the screen. It's gotten to that part of the day where it's like my eyes are like, nope, I don't want to look at nothing else. So let me just share the screen, because then it'll be bigger. But I'm not sure if any of y'all have heard about the topic on sanitation in our region. Here. Ooh. Okay. And I didn't have a chance to look at this, so this would be like the second time or third that I looked at this, but Manhattan Community Board convening a working group in early 2022 to define policies and methods to enhance the handling and storage of waste inside buildings in order to minimize the use of large swaths of sidewalk for waste storage before pickup. Waste management within buildings has garnered little attention, even through the buildings and their occupants are the generations of waste. So this was sent to us, and it was also sent to me to bring to our attention in our meetings. And I'm not too sure, I probably should have forwarded all of this to you guys. I don't know why, I'm not too sure if we sent it before, because I thought Marielle had helped me with this, but I don't think we did send it to you guys. It's definitely a very important document.
I think the best thing to do at this point would
Mhm.
be to get it out and get it distributed. You know, a
Yeah.
quick glance makes it look like a pretty reasonable document. And
Yeah, it's very,
Something-
yeah.
there also was a couple weeks ago up in our district, a community hearing on sanitation issues that I'd say about 200 people were present, along with Commissioner Tisch.
Right.
And I'd want to go back and look through my notes as part of thinking how to respond to this.
For sure. Yeah, this document is bigger than I thought. They said it was a letter and it sounded very short, but sorry for not sending it to y'all. I thought that it was just like a topic to speak about, but it is not. We definitely have to look at this before we speak about it. So wait, Aisha, is that an old hand or a new hand?
It is, sorry.
Okay, it's an old hand.
Emily,
Okay.
one other thought there. you
Mhm.
may want to check in with Health and Environment Committee. My experience with the community board is that's been where a lot of sanitation issues have been dealt with. And I think it'd probably be worth doing the check-in sooner rather than later on that.
Right. Okay. I'll ask them about this as well. And then I guess it goes in the next meeting's agenda as an item. So
I definitely agree with Richard Ullman that this would normally be under the purview of Health and Environment. However, the intersection between how sanitation is affecting people in their housing is an angle that we can work. So just a thought, but maybe it's something that we want to partner with Health and Environment on as well. So.
yeah. And since they did mention that it was how waste is managed in the buildings. So we do have to work with them. Marshall?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in quick because I'm thinking of some program that Mayor Adams announced maybe in the last 2-3 weeks, as far as trying to have less waste on the sidewalks to tamp down on the rat problem and all that. I'm not sure if there's a question in there, but this is something that seems to resonate with what this whole package that you're sending is about.
Marshall, I think what you're referring to is that the mayor, I guess he negotiated with the unions of buildings that work in buildings to not put their trash out until a certain time. And I want to say it's after 6 p.m. now. Or there's two different, there's one for 8 p.m., one for 6 p.m., but I can't recall the detail.
Richard?
I put my hand up and then
You took it back.
the last sentence or two that came before me pretty much got to that. I'm not sure where those lines are either. I think the program is scheduled to be implemented April 1st. I don't think it's a this day program.
But would it address?
There are various issues in it, but it's sure a good direction to be pointing.
Excuse me. Yeah, and I was just wondering now that you all mentioned it, and I do recall hearing about it, if it would address all the waste management issues, or it's just because it goes from like waste management in buildings to the curb, that as it said in the comment. So yeah, this is definitely something that has to be reviewed a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, a quick glance across the letter when you posted it on the screen, there's a reference in there to rodent-proof containers. And when I heard Commissioner Tisch speak, I would say she acknowledged that that's an unresolved issue that they're looking at very closely. And I think really where my comments lead is it looks like this letter is a good starting point to be thinking about these issues. But for us, it's a starting point.
Okay, let me see. Okay, so this list is basically like a list of recommendations to reform sanitation, and I guess we'd just be part of the conversation. So if I'm going to send this document out to you guys, if you could just take a look at it, and then in the next meeting we could talk about it, because I forgot to forward it to you all. So very sorry about that. Okay, any other comments on the issue? Okay. All right, so there are no other items on the agenda. Anyone have any new business that they would like to discuss? Anything going on? Okay. We got a quiet crew today. I know it's because our last meeting was so long. It's like you're scared. I get it. Okay.
Would you accept a motion to adjourn?
And then old business before Aisha.
Yeah, I was like, no, wait, old business.
Yeah,
Okay.
old business.
Okay, so first, the Fort Washington Armory and where we are with our board following through on its own resolution in its entirety, including the public hearing, advocacy for creating the task force, leaning on the elected officials for the actions therein, which are charges that the chair is responsible for, but that the executive committee should probably be weighing in on, because it's my understanding the chair cannot move by himself. The executive committee is what empowers the chair to make the decision on the public hearing, if I remember how it read. But we should definitely defer to the bylaws and how to properly execute on those things, but we should be executing on those things. That being said, the two buildings, 705 and 709 West 170th Street, are still in duress, still in the dark in regards to what is happening with the court case, where HPD is appearing on their behalf. But they are still facing ridiculous circumstances. For instance, the door was removed, the door that actually HPD had replaced because they were left without a door, where homeless people were camping out inside the building and up on the roof. They put a door in and the landlord's people broke the lock right after it was installed. So this is moving in the direction of what I would think is construction as harassment, which is something that was passed here in New York City, which I need to review what the parameters of that is to see how it applies here. But at the general meeting, I don't know how many people were present for that. The district attorney himself appeared and spoke about a new housing effort that his office has. And I raised what is happening at those buildings to him, and mentioned that the landlord is also doing ACH transfers out of people's bank accounts to take rent and has overcharged people in that effort. And so he spoke about the possibility of fraud. And I also asked to have understanding of other things that may be illegal that are happening there, but definitely also how they're being exposed to crimes because of the lack of supports from the landlord. For instance, having a super that is present on a regular basis, having the security in place, but also issues with the boiler. They didn't have heat for like 3 days. So you see the running story here, and it's just been going on for far too long. And here again, what are we doing to get HPD at the table? Why is our chair not advocating in that regard when we have been trying to get them here for some time? So it's the same soup warmed over. How do we stop that?
Yeah, I did mention this at the executive meeting, by the way. They did take note of the buildings, and I did mention the Fort Washington Armory, and I do mention it several times, but there's still no feedback in terms of getting a public hearing going as well. And
so I just want to go on the record and flat out say that I believe that this is obstruction, as it has been for 8 years. Fortunately, for some members of our board who had the courage to vote on the resolution that we put forward and get a winning vote, we have a winning resolution that has been ratified. And therein lies the problem for the people who are dragging it in the mud, because the force of this board has said that these are matters that we agreed to, that are necessary, and that we would like to see happen. That's the voice of the board. No one has the right to not honor that. Not honoring that is obstruction. So I'm going on the record to say that. I would like to see that also change quickly, if possible.
Yes, okay, noted. And I do hope that the issue is solved. It does seem like it's been on the table for a very long time. And I don't want to be the next chair or co-chair or person that just keeps tabling it. So I will continue to bring it to the chair and hope that a public hearing, because that seems like it's the next step that's needed. A public hearing does happen. Yeah. Okay, any other comments on old business? Richard, is that an old hand? I mean, a hand from before? Sorry about that. I didn't mean it that way. Okay, Richard is, oh wait, and Michelle?
Oh, yeah, I want to ask about the public hearing. Is that something that needs to be set up by, who is the person who would set that up?
So it's my understanding that it's the chair and the district manager that are supposed to set this up. They're the ones that have the contacts and that reach out. And I'm, because they have the contacts for like the elected officials or whoever expert or whatever agency needs to be on this panel for the public hearing to talk about the matter. So that's how I see it. Not sure if anyone else in the meeting, Aisha.
So I think I got trust issues. And because we're experiencing what we have across 4 chairs of the board, there's been this tone of dragging this matter and not wanting to give things light. I feel more comfortable if we as a committee begin to do the work of figuring out who are the types of experts that we would want to see, who know and have a depth of knowledge, possibly in academia, to speak to what a 2-acre building could be delivering to our community in the form of outcomes across the spectrum of services that we need. The types of things that we speak about in our, what is the community statement that the board puts forward about the community's needs on an annual basis? Some of those things could be served by such a building, but there are people who, for instance, in public health that have a depth of knowledge of how that would be administered properly in a building such as this. I would like to hear from some of those people and have them at the hearing. So, and I don't know that the people who have been reluctant to put the public hearing forward in the first place are going to do a bang up job on making sure we get some of the best people at the table to discuss that. So I think hopefully we could do some of that work. I have spoken to some people. I will drum that up again. But yeah, but and then maybe if we start to form, you know, and get some momentum in that direction, we can just ask for a date. And then if they tell us no, then it's a why. Why are we being told no? Because obviously they're not doing it, no matter how many times we've asked.
And who else should be in the public hearing, just so that I make a list and have it on record?
What, I think the resolution speaks to that.
Okay.
The people who were CC'd in the resolution, who are definitely the elected officials, definitely the agencies that have purview. I would say definitely the agency in the city that is responsible for drawing up the city's contracts. I have a friend that has worked in the city's contract office for many years. I don't know if she's still with them, but she has an understanding of how these things are normally done. I would be willing to invite her to come and speak with us. But yeah, I would think that's a good basis.
Okay, so I'll have to look at the resolution.
Emily, I have a copy of the resolution that I think Ebenezer forwarded last year, maybe. I can forward it to you as well as like everybody here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And yeah, I think Aisha, since you have so much passion for it, would love to see you like, take the lead on it if this is something that we don't need, somebody else, if we can kind of like lead it on our own,
Yes.
and take that energy and, put
Well,
together.
I think 8 years is that's what I have been doing for
Yeah.
8 years.
So do we have enough to just set a date and just ask Ebenezer for it?
Could we possibly, and I feel like it's like still kicking the can down the road, but maybe at the next meeting, we can have a discussion about positioning ourselves to have that public hearing and then making the ask.
Yeah, I think it's just, I've definitely been hearing about this for probably over a year at this point. So I feel like we should do it if we can, you have all the resources, the folks you want to invite.
Yeah.
We can just you can pull that together, share it with us as a committee. We can share it with Ebenezer, get the date set. I don't know. Like, I think we should just try to make it happen.
Thank you for that. I agree.
And
Yeah,
yeah, I'll forward around the resolution.
thank you so much, Michelle. Yes, so I do understand. I mean, it's something that also people are just like, it's either they want it solved or they're tired of hearing it. And to be honest, I prefer it just be solved than just be tabled constantly. I don't care what the reasoning behind it is. It's either it's solved or it's not on our agenda anymore. I don't want it to be like something that's just sticking to us. So that's just my look on it. And I just hope that it is honored and that we do have this public hearing quickly and do as we approve for when we finally like said yes to the resolution. So yes. Okay. Any other old business? Okay, cool. So I will make a motion. Is it a motion to adjourn? Is that how it's said?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to make
Second.
a motion to adjourn. We got a second. It's 8:39 p.m. Thank you all for participating in tonight's meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good night, y'all.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.